I'm getting that yellow jaundice been going around, I know it. The heebie-jeebies.
It's hepatitis and you don't have it.
At 11:54 p.m., Monday, June 5, 1944, an assault party under command of Major John Howard took off in 6 gliders from Tarrant Rushton Airfield. They were the first troops to leave England for the invasion of the continent, and had a coup de main task of capturing 2 vital bridges intact, namely the bridges over the Caen Canal and River Orne at Benneville and Ranville respectively. 3 gliders were briefed to land within 50 yards of each bridge. Speed and dash on the part of the attacking troops was considered sufficient to overcome the German garrison of 50. At 12:25 a.m., the first glider crash-landed within 20 yards of Benneville Bridge. It contained No. 2 Platoon, commanded by Lieutenant H.D. Brotheridge. According to plan, they immediately attacked and crossed the bridge while they took on the defenses. The sappers who accompanied the party cut wires and removed charges. Lieutenant Brotheridge was unfortunately shot crossing the bridge, and died 2 hours later. He gave a gallant display of brilliant leadership. The second glider, commanded by Lieutenant D.J. Wood, touched down a minute after with 14 platoon commanded by Lieutenant R.A. Smith, 30 seconds later. While we took on the inner defenses, 14 were ordered to reinforce 25 and start to form a small bridgehead to meet the first expected counterattack. Both the platoon commander and the platoon sergeant of 24 platoon were wounded in the initial assault, subsequent command falling on Corporal Godbold. On the Ranville Bridge, only 2 gliders had arrived, 17 platoon under Lieutenant D.B. Fox and 23 under Lieutenant H.J. Sweeney. Little opposition was met and 17 platoons soon had full control of the bridge. Reinforced by 23, both bridges were captured intact and consolidation effected after mopping up, within 15 minutes of landing. The defense of the bridges until our relief arrived was expected to be a difficult task. Within an hour, some 2 or 3 tanks approached the bridges. The first tank was put out of action by a well-aimed bomb from a Piat. 1 platoon was brought over from the river bridge to form part of the bridgehead on the west bank. Our relief 7th Battalion, Parachute Regiment, Somerset Light Infantry, reached us 3 hours after our landing, 2 hours later than expected. Being relieved by the Somerset made the bridge operation a light infantry show. Our first relief was intended to be a 7th Para Battalion commanded by Major R.J. Bartlett of the regiment. Unfortunately, they were dropped, dispersed, and unable to reach us as soon as expected. Soon after first light, a gunboat moved up the canal from the sea and shot HQ's 7 Para Battalion. Another well-aimed Piat bomb put this out of action. The assault force was still defending the bridges when the regiment landed and crossed the bridges at 11 p.m. The missing glider, 22 Platoon under Lieutenant C.R. Hooper, with the second in command, Captain B.C. Pride, landed near a bridge on the River Dives and had a lively fight with the Germans defending. Having discovered where they were, they set out and joined the regiment at Ranville at 2:30 a.m. on June 8, 1944. Following is the war diary of the remainder of the regiment who did not land at the bridges. 1st June 1944. D-Day-5. Place, Kuhl. General briefing commenced by companies and lasted from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., during which time the troops were given an introduction to the operation, the main details explained and orders given. The amount of information available was such that troops could not be expected to absorb it all in one session. They appeared to be well pleased with their role and were obviously gratified with the efforts the higher commands and RAF had made in order to ensure that the operation was a success. Major General Gale visited the men on the airfield and gave them further details of stressing the great support they were getting from the RAF artillery and sea landing units. Brigadier Kindersley visited the camp during the afternoon and watched some of the briefing. He wished the men the best of luck and an early finish to the war. Members of the RAF tug crews visited the officers' mess during the evening and all enjoyed a rather convivial evening. June 2nd D-Day-4. Place, Kuhl. Briefing continued. Platoon commands went into greater detail and the men had more time to absorb the information with particular reference to their own section roles. Lieutenant General A.F. Browning, commander of Allied Airborne Forces, visited the camp and gave the men an inspiring talk emphasizing our great superiority. 3rd and June 4th D-Day-2. Briefings continue in greater detail, including the latest intelligence reports of the bridges. June 6, 1944, D-Day. The Regiment-D Company who were scheduled for the bridge took off from Harwell and Kewell airfields at 6:40 and 7:10 p.m. respectively. The trip was rather bumpy over land, but all became very calm over the sea. At approximately 8:55 hours, we approached the French coast and could see a large fleet of ships standing offshore and occasional bursts of fire coming from their guns. It was very easy to pick out the river and canal below and ahead of us, and we knew that there had been no mistake in navigation. All gliders except 4 landed on or somewhere near the Elzey, although in most cases crash landings occurred and many collisions took place. A certain amount of flak as gliders ran and added to the many difficulties of the glider pilots who in the majority of cases did magnificently. There was a certain amount of firing on the Elzey, and some snipers still seemed to be holding out in the area of the bridges at Benneville. After some delay, due to the fact that some gliders landed rather a long way south, and also some were very badly smashed which made unloading difficult, the regiment formed up in the area of Lepore. 10:15 p.m., the regiment began to move forward to cross the bridges to the prearranged concentration area. At this time 4 glider loads had failed to land. A few people had been hurt in crash landings, including the commanding officer who managed to carry on, and the loading officer who had to be evacuated. Major Howard, commanding the bridge assault force, reported to the commanding officer and said that the route to the concentration area was clear. Despite the darkness of the night, the regiment moved quickly into the concentration area and a temporary HQ was set up. 11 p.m., the commanding officer met the brigade commander 6th Air Landing Brigade on the bridge at Benneville, and was taken forward to the area of the church at Ranville. The commanding officer received orders to move forward into the area of the 13th Parachute Battalion at Ranville, with intention of occupying Hervelet as soon as possible, and then to move on to occupy Esquivel as was originally intended.